In just a few weeks, millions of Londoners will choose their next mayor. While many outside London will roll their eyes at the mere mention of the capital, London is quite a big place, and being its mayor is quite a big job. But every time this election is staged, hundreds of thousands of votes get cast that are never counted towards the final result. Now, why is that? When people turn up at London's polling stations in May, they get given 3 ballot papers. One is for their constituency member of the London Assembly. They're elected under first past the post. Whoever gets the most votes is the winner. The second ballot paper is for a party, not a candidate. These list members of the Assembly are there to make sure that it roughly resembles the share of the vote that each party gets. But London's mayor's elected under a third system, the supplementary vote. You give a first and then a second preference. The first preference votes are counted and the top 2 candidates move on to round 2. All the others are eliminated. And that's when those second preferences come into play. If your second choice is still in the running, they'll get your vote. One of them will have more than 50% and they'll be elected mayor. Now, this has worked out very well for the Conservatives and Labour, but not so much for the smaller parties who get squeezed out. They only get a small number of first preference votes, but they rack up hundreds of thousands more second preferences, all of which are binned because they've been eliminated. It's a bit of a catch-22 situation. Those votes won't count unless you can make it to the second round, and you won't make it to the second round because those votes aren't counted. Here's the result from 2016. Look how far behind the Greens and Liberal Democrats are. But if those parties had managed to persuade all the people who gave them second preference votes to switch those to first preference, you can see how much closer the result would be. It wouldn't have changed the outcome. Labour's Sadiq Khan would still have won. But go back to 2008. If Lib Dem Brian Paddick had managed to pull off that strategy, he could have come within an inch of beating Labour's Ken Livingstone into the second round. Of course, it's perfectly possible that there are just lots more voters in London for whom the Lib Dems or the Greens or somebody else are just a natural second choice. But it's also possible that voters might not understand this fairly complicated system. 3 ballot papers, 3 different ways of voting, 3 different ways of counting the votes. Most normal people are, funnily enough, too busy to devote much time to the complexities of the London electoral system. They have better things to do. It also probably doesn't help that the smaller parties pretend they're fighting to win a job that in reality they almost certainly can't. None of this may actually matter this time round. Sadiq Khan is by all accounts doing so well he could win in the first round by getting more than half of all the first preference votes. The government says it wants to scrap this system and elect mayors under first past the post instead. But with half a dozen or more candidates, that means that in future, London's mayor may only need to win around a third of the votes to get elected. So which is better, an easily understood system that elects someone with a minority of support, or a more complex one that manages to ignore more than 1 million votes every time? Democracy can be awfully complicated.